My daughter laughed when I asked for help. You're broke. She didn't know I was her company's silent investor. The opulent living room, usually a sanctuary of refined elegance, felt utterly frigid to Alara Vance. At 78, she had seen many seasons of life, but few had felt as stark as this moment. A chilling stillness permeated the air, a silence that felt heavier than any noise. Her daughter, Lyra, perched on a plush velvet sofa, had just finished her scathing tirade, her voice dripping with derision, each word a carefully honed arrow piercing the thin veneer of Alara's composure. Honestly, Mother, are you serious? Asking us for a loan? You, who's supposed to be rolling in money from Dad's estate? It's pathetic, truly. You must be completely broke. The disdain was palpable, a bitter perfume filling the elegant space. Lyra's husband, Theron, a man whose expensive suit couldn't hide the condescending smirk that perpetually played on his lips, chimed in, his voice a low, gravelly sneer. We always knew this day would come, Lyra. All that lavish spending, no real income. It's just a matter of time before the well runs dry. Honestly, Alara, you should have been more careful. Maybe downsize that monstrous house of yours? Sell some of those antiques? He chuckled then, a brittle, humorless sound that echoed the emptiness of his words, a sound that grated on Alara's nerves like fingernails on a chalkboard. It was the sound of triumph, barely concealed, at her supposed misfortune. Alara sat perfectly still in her armchair, a delicate china teacup balanced on her lap, its contents long forgotten, cold as the words that had just been spoken. Her emerald eyes, usually sparkling with a gentle warmth that belied her age, were now as cold and hard as polished jade. They betrayed nothing of the churning storm within. She offered no immediate defense, no plea, no visible sign of the profound hurt that twisted within her. Her silence was not born of shock, though the cruelty of their words was breathtaking. Instead, it was born of a chilling confirmation, a dreadful realization solidifying into an undeniable truth. This was it. This was the final, unequivocal demonstration of their contempt, their utter lack of empathy, their unyielding belief that she was nothing more than a bottomless ATM, now supposedly out of order. The last vestiges of doubt, the last whispers of hope she had clung to for decades, had been extinguished by their cruel laughter. The game, she realized with a quiet, devastating certainty, was finally over. A ghost of a smile, almost imperceptible, touched Alara's lips then. It was a smile devoid of joy, utterly devoid of warmth. Instead, it was filled with the quiet, devastating power of a decision irrevocably made. It was the smile of an awakening, a cold, hard clarity that settled deep in her bones. For decades, she had yearned for their love, their respect, even a flicker of genuine appreciation. Today, they had given her something far more valuable than anything she had ever bought them, clarity. The last wisps of illusion had dissipated, leaving behind a stark, unvarnished truth. To understand the full weight of that silent smile, one had to delve into the labyrinthine history of Alara Vance's life, a life woven with threads of immense wealth, profound generosity, and an equally profound, unspoken sorrow. When her beloved husband, Alistair Vance, had passed away 15 years prior, he had left Alara with an inheritance that could only be described as staggering. Alistair, a titan in the manufacturing industry, had built an empire from humble beginnings, his foresight and relentless drive ensuring that his family would never want for anything. His estate, combined with Alara's own astute, quiet investments over the years, careful choices in blue-chip stocks, discreet real estate ventures, and a keen eye for emerging markets that few suspected she possessed, meant her personal fortune ran into the hundreds of millions. She was not just comfortable, she was undeniably, discreetly, one of the wealthiest women in the city, her financial prowess hidden beneath a veil of gentle humility. Yet, wealth had not bought her the one thing she truly craved, the genuine affection and respect of her only child, Lyra. From the moment Lyra had become an adult, the relationship had subtly shifted, almost imperceptibly at first, like a slow-moving glacier. Lyra, blessed with a striking beauty and a taste for the finer things, quickly embraced a life of unbridled luxury, a lifestyle meticulously funded by Alara. The subtle requests had grown into demands, the implied expectations into outright entitlements. She recalled the wedding, for instance. Lyra, then in her early 30s, had insisted on a fairy tale affair at a historic French chateau. The cost, a cool $2 million, had been borne entirely by Alara, who had merely wanted her daughter to be happy, to have the day of her dreams. Alara had tried, gently, to suggest a slightly less extravagant venue, perhaps a beautiful vineyard estate closer to home, but Lyra's dismissive wave of the hand still felt sharp in Alara's memory. "Mother, it's my only wedding. And you can afford it, can't you? It's not like you're doing anything with all that money." The words had stung, a familiar pattern of dismissal, yet Alara had swallowed the pain, focusing instead on the fleeting image of Lyra's radiant smile, convincing herself, as she always did, that it was worth it. She remembered standing quietly in the background at the chateau, a mere spectator, while Lyra and Theron basked in the glow of their extravagant celebration, barely acknowledging Alara's presence beyond a perfunctory nod. Then came the houses. Lyra and Theron, a struggling real estate agent when they met, had never truly managed their finances. Their first home, a sprawling suburban mansion with manicured lawns and a 3-car garage, had its $500,000 down payment covered by Alara. "It's an investment, Mother." Lyra had chirped, "It'll be worth double in a few years." A few years later, facing financial strain from their profligate spending, Lyra's designer shopping habits, Theron's ill-conceived business ventures, their endless entertaining, they had pleaded with Alara to help them out with the mortgage payments. For 5 years, Alara had quietly transferred the substantial monthly sum, ensuring they didn't default, sacrificing her own desires for quiet travel or philanthropic endeavors. She had seen the balance in her accounts diminish, but the yearning for her daughter's genuine affection had always overridden her financial prudence. When they decided to upgrade to an even grander estate in the exclusive gated community of Silverwood Hills, Alara again found herself writing a check, this time for a $1 million down payment. "It's so much more prestigious, Mother. Think of the grandchildren. They need space." Lyra had argued, conveniently forgetting Alara's own spacious home was always open to them, often empty for lack of visitors. Alara had acquiesced, her heart aching for a grandchild's spontaneous hug, a casual, "thank you," anything beyond the perfunctory acknowledgement of her generosity, or Lyra's swift, almost immediate transition to discussing the next lavish purchase for the new house. Cars were a recurring theme, a constant parade of luxury vehicles. There was the sleek black Mercedes-Benz S-Class Lyra drove, then the opulent Range Rover, followed by a bespoke Bentley, each one newer, more expensive than the last. Each time, Lyra would simply present Alara with the dealership invoice, expecting immediate payment. "The lease on the Mercedes is up, Mother. And the Range Rover is so much better for school runs now that the kids are older, don't you think?" Theron, not to be outdone, enjoyed a series of high-performance sports cars, each new model a testament to Alara's seemingly endless coffers. "A man needs to project success in his business, Alara," he'd declare, fully aware he was spending Alara's money, not his own. Alara had always wondered how many of his business deals were actually funded by these expensive accessories rather than genuine success. The grandchildren, bless their innocent hearts, were not immune to their parents' materialism. Private school tuition fees that rivaled university costs, exclusive summer camps in Switzerland, extravagant birthday parties that rivaled small weddings, designer clothes that were outgrown in months, all fell under Alara's financial umbrella. She loved her grandchildren deeply, cherishing the rare moments they would climb into her lap, but she saw how their parents instilled in them the same sense of entitlement. "Go ask Nana Alara, darling, she'll get it for you," was a common refrain when they wanted something new and expensive, a phrase that chipped away at Alara's heart, turning her into an automated dispenser of wants. Beyond the personal expenses, there was Lyra's company, Elite Lifestyle Concierge. It was Lyra's pet project, a venture that promised to cater to the every whim of the ultra-rich. In reality, it was a financial sinkhole, constantly teetering on the brink of collapse due to Lyra's poor management, her lavish spending on office decor, and exorbitant overheads. 5 years ago, elite lifestyle concierge had faced imminent bankruptcy, a fact Alara had discreetly learned through her own financial contacts who had warned her of the impending disaster. Lyra, in tears, had called Alara, begging her to save her dream, her legacy. Alara, seeing her daughter's genuine desperation, had consulted her financial advisors. Under their shrewd guidance, she had anonymously invested a significant sum, enough to cover all the company's debts and provide substantial working capital, through a series of shell corporations and blind trusts. She had become the silent, controlling investor, owning 60% of the company, a fact Lyra remained entirely ignorant of. Alara's investment not only saved the company but also provided the capital for its expansion, which Lyra, of course, took full credit for. "Mother, my business is booming. I'm practically a mogul," she would announce proudly, never once acknowledging the lifeline Alara had thrown her, nor the quiet, watchful eye Alara kept on its precarious finances. The emotional cost of this one-sided generosity was immense. Alara was rarely consulted on family matters, her opinions dismissed with a casual wave of the hand, her presence often treated as an inconvenience. Family dinners were occasions where Lyra and Theron would talk over her, interrupt her mid-sentence, or simply ignore her, discussing their latest luxury purchases or complaining about trivial inconveniences, the slow service at their favorite restaurant, the minor scratch on their new car. "Oh, Mother, you wouldn't understand," Lyra would often say, a patronizing smile gracing her lips. "Your life is so simple." The words implied not simplicity, but irrelevance, a quiet dismissal of Alara's entire being. Alara recalled a particularly painful Christmas 2 years ago. She had meticulously wrapped thoughtful, handcrafted gifts for everyone, a testament to her deep care and the hours she had spent choosing and preparing them. Lyra, upon unwrapping a beautifully knitted cashmere scarf that Alara had commissioned from a local artisan, had wrinkled her nose, a faint grimace of disappointment crossing her face. "Oh, a scarf, Mother. How quaint. I suppose it's better than nothing, but I really had my eye on that new Gucci bag. Theron, darling, did you remember to get Mother something from the new collection?" Theron had merely grunted, already engrossed in his phone. The Gucci bag, of course, had been purchased by Alara for Lyra herself, just weeks before, an expensive indulgence to celebrate Lyra's supposed business success. The irony had been a bitter pill to swallow. Her attempts to forge a deeper connection were constantly rebuffed. She offered to help with childcare, to cook Lyra's favorite meals, to simply spend time, perhaps a quiet afternoon in the garden. Lyra would always have an excuse. "Oh, Mother, the nanny has it covered, you know how busy I am," or "We're so busy, maybe next month, darling." Invitations to family events were rare and always felt like an obligation, a box to be ticked, rather than a genuine desire for her company. When Alara finally mustered the courage to express her feelings, a quiet plea for more genuine connection, Lyra would simply deflect. "Mother, you have everything. What more could you possibly want? We're grateful, of course, but you're being dramatic. You're just bored." The accusation of being bored had sliced through Alara, dismissing her deepest emotional needs as mere triviality. The final straw wasn't just the request for a loan, it was the entire performance that accompanied it, the venomous glee in Lyra's eyes. Alara had carefully orchestrated the scenario, feigning a minor liquidity issue, describing it as a temporary hiccup with an investment, needing a small, temporary loan of merely $50,000, a pittance compared to what she had given them. She had watched Lyra's eyes narrow, then widen in a triumphant, almost gleeful malice. The ensuing laughter, the venomous accusations of being broke, the thinly veiled delight at her supposed downfall, it was all Alara needed. It solidified what she had long suspected: their affection was conditional, their respect non-existent, and their relationship with her was purely transactional. The decades of silent sacrifice, the countless millions spent, the endless emotional pain, it all culminated in that bitter laugh. And in that laugh, Alara found not defeat, but a cold, liberating resolve. The fog had lifted, and the path forward, though potentially difficult, was clear. The very next morning, Alara Vance moved with a quiet, devastating purpose. Her usual morning routine of gentle yoga and a light breakfast was replaced by a series of urgent phone calls, her resolve hardening with each dial tone. Her primary contact was Arthur Sterling, her long-standing financial advisor and the discreet, trustworthy head of her personal trust management firm. Arthur, a man of impeccable discretion and sharp intellect, who had witnessed Alara's long-suffering generosity with a quiet, knowing disapproval, answered on the second ring. "Arthur, good morning. I need to activate the protocols we discussed previously." "All of them," Alara stated, her voice devoid of any tremor, crisp and clear, a steel edge replacing her usual gentle tone. Arthur, who had been privy to Alara's quiet frustrations for years and had, in fact, gently advised against much of her excessive generosity, understood immediately. He had always known this day might come, perhaps even hoped for it. "Understood, Alara. The full cessation of all direct and indirect financial support. And the activation of your controlling interest in Elite Lifestyle Concierge?" His voice held a hint of surprise at the swiftness of her decision, but mostly a quiet admiration for her resolve. "Precisely, Arthur. Effective immediately. I want every single payment, every allowance, every direct debit linked to Lyra and Theron Vance, and their children, terminated. Their mortgages, car payments, credit card allowances, insurance premiums, even the grandchildren's private school tuition. Every single penny that flows from my accounts to theirs must stop. And for Elite Lifestyle Concierge, I want a full, immediate audit initiated. I want board meetings scheduled, and I want my rights as the majority shareholder to be exercised to their fullest extent. No more anonymous investment. My name, Alara Vance, as the primary, controlling investor, must be known. And I want a full review of their executive compensation and operational expenses. I suspect they've been rather generous with themselves." A hint of ice entered her voice as she spoke of the company that had become a symbol of Lyra's self-deception and Theron's exploitation. Arthur paused, a hint of awe in his voice, but a deeper understanding as well. "Alara, this is comprehensive. Are you absolutely certain? This will have significant repercussions. They will be unprepared." He wasn't warning her, but acknowledging the sheer scale of the change she was enacting. "I have never been more certain, Arthur," Alara replied, her gaze fixed on the blooming camellias outside her window, their soft petals a stark contrast to the hardness of her decision. "Proceed without delay. And please, keep me informed of every development. I want a detailed report every evening." As Arthur began to mobilize his teams of lawyers and accountants, a formidable force that could dissect and dismantle financial structures with ruthless efficiency, Alara made another call. This time, it was to a private investigator, Mr. Davies, a shrewd, quiet man she had discreetly retained months ago, driven by a nagging sense of unease. His previous work had been mostly background checks on prospective employees, but Alara had subtly redirected his focus. "Mr. Davies, I require your services again. I need a comprehensive report on the financial dealings of Theron Thorne, specifically regarding his real estate ventures and any outstanding debts or hidden assets. I also need detailed information on any personal loans or lines of credit Lyra Vance and Theron Thorne may have taken out in their personal capacities. Expedite this, please. I want to know exactly how deep their financial recklessness runs." The wheels of justice, or perhaps, rather, of financial retribution, began to turn with remarkable speed and precision, set in motion by a woman who had finally decided to reclaim her power. The first tremor in Lyra and Theron's carefully constructed world of illusion came subtly, then rapidly escalated. Lyra was at her favorite high-end boutique, browsing for a new designer handbag, a limited edition piece she had coveted for weeks, when her platinum credit card was declined. "Insufficient funds," the sales associate murmured apologetically, her face a mask of polite concern. Lyra scoffed, a dismissive wave of her hand. Impossible. Try it again. There must be a mistake. My mother ensures there's always ample credit. The card was tried again, and again, with the same humiliating result. Her face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment, Lyra stormed out, fuming, assuming it was a temporary banking glitch. She tried another card, the one Alara had topped up monthly for her discretionary spending, only to find the same issue, then another, and another. Panic, cold and insistent, began to prickle at the edges of her self-assurance. Theron, meanwhile, received an urgent, somewhat frantic call from his bank. Mr. Thorne, your mortgage payment for the Silverwood Hills property has been returned. There appear to be insufficient funds in the account linked to the direct debit. Theron dismissed it, annoyed, barely listening. What? That's impossible. My mother-in-law handles that. There must be a technical error. Try again tomorrow. It's certainly her bank's fault. His voice was laced with an arrogance born of never having to worry about such mundane things. The following days brought a cascade of increasingly alarming notifications, each one chipping away at their illusion of invincibility. Lyra's car, the gleaming Bentley, was suddenly inaccessible, its sophisticated systems locked down. The dealer called, informing her the lease payment had bounced, and the vehicle was being remotely disabled pending payment. But my mother-in-law pays for that. Lyra shrieked into the phone, her voice rising in a panicked crescendo. She always does. This is ridiculous. Then came the call from St. Augustine's Academy, the elite private school her grandchildren attended, a bastion of privilege and social connections. Mrs. Vance, we regret to inform you that the tuition payment for both Alexander and Isabella for the upcoming term is significantly overdue. We've attempted to process the payment several times, but it has been declined. If the full amount is not settled within 48 hours, we will unfortunately have to suspend their enrollment. This was a blow Lyra could not ignore. The school was her social currency, her children's gateway to the right circles, her badge of honor in the competitive world of elite mothers. Panic began to set in, a cold dread seeping into her carefully manicured world, chilling her to the bone. She frantically called Alara, but her calls went straight to voicemail, a polite, automated voice that offered no comfort. She tried Theron, who was equally bewildered and infuriated, his own financial avenues mysteriously drying up. What is going on, Theron? Lyra demanded, her voice tight with fear, a tremor she rarely allowed herself to show. My cards are all declined, the Bentley is a brick, and the school is threatening to expel the children. Is Mother finally losing her mind? Did she cut us off? Her mind, accustomed to the steady flow of Alara's funds, could not comprehend such a drastic, sudden halt. Theron, who had been attempting to access his various personal lines of credit, all of which were now frozen or had their limits drastically reduced, slammed his phone down with a curse. I don't know, Lyra. My business accounts are fine, but all the personal ones tied to Alara's support are dead. This is insane. She can't do this. This must be illegal. He paced the opulent living room, his expensive loafers clicking on the imported marble, oblivious to the fact that even the marble had likely been indirectly paid for by Alara. For the first time in their lives, Lyra and Theron felt the icy grip of genuine financial fear. They had always lived under the illusion of endless wealth, a safety net woven by Alara with millions of dollars and decades of quiet sacrifice. Now, that net had been abruptly, mercilessly cut. Their world was crumbling, and the source of their misery was clear, though incomprehensible to their entitled minds. They could only imagine Alara had gone mad, not that she had finally, justly, found her sanity. The Silverwood Hills mansion, usually buzzing with the laughter of children or the clinking of expensive crystal during social gatherings, was cloaked in an anxious silence. Lyra and Theron paced back and forth, their faces contorted with a mixture of disbelief, anger, and dawning horror. They had called Alara repeatedly, left furious voicemails filled with accusations and threats, but received no response beyond the automated message. Finally, in a desperate, last-ditch effort, feeling a rising sense of claustrophobia within their suddenly unstable home, they decided to confront her in person. They arrived at Alara's elegant, understated home, their luxury SUV, a loaner from a sympathetic friend, as Theron's sports car had also been repossessed, pulling up the long, winding driveway. Lyra, her designer dress rumpled from the frantic drive, her meticulously applied makeup smudged from frustrated tears, hammered on the front door, her usual poise replaced by a desperate urgency. Alara opened the door herself, her expression serene, almost serene enough to be unsettling. She wore a simple silk robe, its fabric flowing elegantly around her, her silver hair neatly coiffed, a picture of calm dignity. Her eyes, however, held a glint of something new, something Lyra and Theron had never witnessed before, unyielding resolve, a quiet power that radiated from her. Mother. What is the meaning of this? Lyra burst out, her voice a high-pitched whine, bordering on a shriek. Our cards are declined, the school is threatening to kick out the children, and Theron's Bentley was taken. Have you gone completely mad? You're ruining us. Theron, stepping forward, attempted to adopt a more reasonable, yet still accusatory, tone, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his own mounting fear. Alara, this is unacceptable. You can't just cut us off like this. We have expenses, children, a lifestyle. What are we supposed to do? Do you want us to be homeless? He tried to inject a sense of moral indignation into his voice, as if Alara were the one committing the injustice. Alara merely stepped back, allowing them into the foyer, her gaze sweeping over them, taking in their disheveled appearances and frantic energy, the stark contrast to her own quiet composure. She led them into the living room, the very same room where Lyra had mocked her just days before. Alara sat gracefully in her favorite armchair, its plush fabric a familiar comfort, gesturing for them to take the opposing sofa. They remained standing, agitated, too restless to sit. Sit, Alara said, her voice soft but firm, leaving no room for argument, a tone they hadn't heard from her in decades. Reluctantly, as if their legs had suddenly become too weak to hold them, they sank onto the plush cushions, their bodies stiff with resentment and fear. Now, Alara began, her gaze fixed on Lyra, unwavering, as if piercing through layers of self-deception. Let us discuss what is going on. You asked, Lyra, if I had gone mad. On the contrary. I believe I have finally come to my senses. After many years of being blind, I can finally see. Lyra scoffed, a nervous, desperate sound. Coming to your senses? By destroying your own family? How dare you? After all we've done for you. We're your only family. Alara's eyes flickered, a momentary flash of old pain, but her voice remained steady, each word measured and precise. All you've done for me? Tell me, Lyra, Theron, what exactly have you done for me, besides emptying my bank accounts and, more importantly, emptying my heart of hope? Theron bristled, his face reddening. We are your family, Alara. We are your blood. We have always been there for you. We spent holidays with you. We allowed you to be part of our lives. Oh, have you? Alara's voice was edged with a bitter irony, a quiet sarcasm that cut through their bluster. Were you there when you demanded I pay for a $2 million wedding you barely invited me to, relegating me to a distant observer? Were you there when I paid for not one, but two of your dream homes, only for you to complain about the taxes, which I also ended up covering? Were you there when you presented me with invoices for Bentleys and Range Rovers, never once asking if I needed anything, if I was well, if I was happy? Or just if my accounts were sufficient to cover your next indulgence? Lyra attempted to interrupt, a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative. Mother, you're being dramatic. You have so much money. It's what parents do for their children. It's your responsibility. Is it, Lyra? Elara cut her off, her voice gaining a quiet, undeniable power, the pent-up frustration of decades finally finding its voice. Is it what parents do, to fund a lavish lifestyle while being treated with open contempt? To be ridiculed for daring to ask for a paltry loan, after providing millions without a single word of genuine thanks? To be called broke by the very people whose every luxury was paid for by my endless supply? To be ignored, dismissed, and used as a convenient financial resource? Elara leaned forward slightly, her eyes piercing, holding Lyra's gaze. You know, Lyra, when you called me broke, you didn't know the half of it. You see, years ago, when your elite lifestyle concierge company was on the brink of collapse, facing bankruptcy, its debts piling up, who do you think stepped in to save it? Who quietly paid off your creditors and infused it with capital? Lyra frowned, confused, her mind struggling to process this unexpected turn. What are you talking about? It was just a rough patch. We managed to pull through, thanks to my brilliant management and Theron's savvy connections. It was a miracle of my own making. Elara let out a soft, mirthless laugh, a sound that held no amusement, only profound sadness and a touch of cold triumph. Your brilliant management was driving it into the ground, Lyra. And Theron's savvy connections amounted to nothing but empty promises and inflated invoices. No, Lyra. It was I who saved your company. I was the anonymous investor who poured millions into elite lifestyle concierge, through a series of trusts and shell corporations, to keep your dream alive. I own 60% of your company, Lyra. A controlling stake. I am your silent partner, your anonymous benefactor, your ultimate boss. The words hung in the air, a stunning, crushing revelation that echoed in the silent room. Lyra's face, already pale with anxiety, drained of all color, turning a ghastly white. Theron's jaw dropped, his usual smugness replaced by genuine, unadulterated shock, his carefully constructed facade crumbling. You own my company? Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible, a childlike tremor entering it. That's impossible. Why would you never tell me? Why keep it a secret? Because, Lyra, Elara said, her voice now filled with a cold, righteous anger that had been simmering for decades, an unburdening of years of pain. I wanted to see if your gratitude would ever extend beyond my bank balance. I wanted to see if you would ever value me as a mother, not just as a source of funds. I hoped, foolishly perhaps, that you would recognize the sacrifices made, the love given. And you failed, Lyra. Spectacularly. You and Theron have bled me dry, not of money, for that I have an abundance, but of hope, of love, of respect. You have treated me as an inconvenience, a burden, an ATM, always expected to dispense. And the moment you thought the ATM was empty, you mocked me, you laughed at me, you reveled in my imagined downfall. Elara rose, standing tall and regal, her posture radiating an authority they had never seen, a stark contrast to their slumped, defeated forms on the sofa. This is not a temporary setback, Lyra. This is not a glitch. This is permanent. Every single penny, every single allowance, every single payment that has ever flowed from my accounts to yours, or to your children's, has been cut off. Permanently. The mortgages, the cars, the credit cards, the school tuition, all of it. And as for elite lifestyle concierge? Elara allowed a chilling smile to play on her lips, a smile that promised no mercy. Effective immediately, my legal team is exercising my rights as the majority shareholder. There will be a full audit. There will be a complete review of your operational expenses, Lyra. I suspect you'll find your executive compensation, and Theron's inflated consultancy fees, will be the first to be drastically reviewed. You wanted to treat me as your ATM? Fine. The ATM is now closed for business. And I am withdrawing my investment in your company, and in your lives. Lyra stared at her mother, tears welling in her eyes, not from remorse or understanding, but from sheer, unadulterated terror at the precipice of ruin. "Mother, please. You can't do this. What about the children? What about our home? We'll lose everything. Please, I beg you. We'll change. We'll be better. Just give us another chance." She began to sob, a pathetic, desperate sound, her pleas echoing hollowly in the elegant room. Theron, recovering slightly, his mind grasping for any straw, tried a different tactic, attempting to shame her. "Ilara, this is spiteful. This is revenge. You're destroying us. We're family. Think of the optics. What will people say? Your reputation." Ilara met his gaze, her eyes unwavering, her voice steady and clear. "What will people say, Theron? Perhaps they will say that a mother finally stood up for herself. Perhaps they will say that two entitled adults finally learned that money does not buy love, nor does it excuse egregious disrespect. You want to know what you are supposed to do? You are supposed to learn to stand on your own 2 feet, without a safety net of inherited wealth. Just as you always told me, you are going to learn what it's like to be broke. My decision is final. You have taught me a valuable lesson, and now, it is time for me to return the favor." She walked to the door, opening it wide, gesturing for them to leave. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have calls to make. Calls to people who genuinely care for me, and whose company I actually enjoy, people who value me for who I am, not what I possess." Lyra and Theron, utterly devastated, their illusions shattered, stumbled out of the house, leaving behind the quiet, resolute woman who had, with a few calm words, dismantled the very foundation of their existence, piece by agonizing piece. The silence that fell after they left was not empty, but filled with a profound sense of peace. Lyra and Theron drove away from Ilara's home in a stunned silence, their minds reeling from the revelations, the accusations, and the absolute finality of Ilara's words. The revelation about elite lifestyle concierge had been the most devastating blow, turning Lyra's perceived triumph into a bitter, humiliating defeat. They had always believed they were the clever ones, manipulating Ilara's wealth to their advantage, pulling the strings. The truth was far more brutal. They had been mere puppets, dancing on strings pulled by the woman they had so casually disdained, oblivious to the true nature of their financial reality. The drive back to Silverwood Hills was filled with increasingly frantic phone calls, each one a confirmation of their precipitous fall. Theron tried to reach his real estate contacts, hoping to secure some emergency loans, but his reputation, built on an illusion of prosperity and his mother-in-law's perceived endless wealth, was quickly crumbling. His calls went unanswered or were met with vague, non-committal responses. Lyra called friends, attempting to borrow money, but her pleas were met with polite excuses and vague promises of looking into it. No one wanted to lend significant sums to a couple whose financial stability had suddenly, mysteriously evaporated, and whose lavish lifestyle had always hinted at a tenuous foundation. Upon returning to their lavish home, the cold reality of their situation truly set in. The house, once a glittering symbol of their success and social standing, now felt like a gilded cage on the verge of collapsing, its spacious rooms echoing with their growing despair. Notifications from the bank flooded their inboxes, mortgage default warnings, credit card accounts frozen, utility bills bouncing, threatening immediate disconnection. The school called again, firmer this time, their tone devoid of previous courtesy. "Mrs. Vance, we regret to inform you that Alexander and Isabella have been formally unenrolled due to outstanding tuition fees. All personal belongings must be collected by the end of the day." Lyra burst into fresh tears, not for her children's education or their emotional distress, but for the devastating blow to her social standing. How would she explain this to her friends, to the other mothers at the school who judged success by appearances? The shame was a bitter taste in her mouth. The following weeks were a dizzying descent into chaos, a stark contrast to their previous life of effortless luxury. The gleaming Bentley was formally repossessed, towed away in broad daylight, a mortifying spectacle for their neighbors. Theron's sports car followed days later. Then came the eviction notice for their Silverwood Hills home. Without the mortgage payments, the bank was moving quickly, ruthlessly. Their luxury allowances were gone, their designer clothes suddenly unaffordable, their favorite restaurants beyond their means. The children, bewildered and upset by the sudden upheaval, were pulled from their private school and had to be enrolled in a local public school, a notion Lyra found utterly humiliating, a public acknowledgement of their new, reduced status. Their nannies, housekeepers, and personal assistants had to be let go, leaving them to manage their own lives for the first time. Lyra and Theron, who had never truly worked for anything in their lives, found themselves scrambling, learning the harsh realities of earning a living. Theron's real estate business, already shaky and reliant on Alara's hidden support, disintegrated entirely. Lyra's elite lifestyle concierge was in turmoil. Alara's legal team, now openly present and undeniably in charge, initiated a brutal audit, uncovering years of questionable expenses, inflated salaries, and outright financial mismanagement. Lyra's executive compensation was slashed, Theron's consultancy fees cancelled, and the company's lavish operational costs were ruthlessly cut. They were effectively stripped of their positions, though technically still employees, reporting to the new, Alara-appointed management. They were now forced to work long hours for a fraction of their previous income, facing the cold, hard truth of earning a living, of answering to a boss, of meeting deadlines. Meanwhile, Alara Vance breathed a sigh of profound relief, a feeling she hadn't experienced in decades. The initial act of cutting them off had been emotionally taxing, a wrenching decision, but the aftermath brought an unexpected lightness, a liberation of spirit. She spent a blissful afternoon calling old friends she had neglected, people who genuinely cared for her, not her money or her perceived status. She planned a trip to Italy, a long-cherished dream she had always postponed for the sake of her family's perceived needs. She started attending a local book club, joined a gardening society, and found joy in simple pleasures like baking for her neighbors and taking long, unhurried walks in the park, enjoying the warmth of the sun on her face. The silence of her large house, once a heavy weight of loneliness, now felt like a peaceful sanctuary, filled with the promise of newfound hobbies and quiet contentment. She was finally living for herself, for her own quiet joys, unbound by the relentless demands of others. Her wealth, once a burden of obligation, was now a tool for her own happiness and for quiet, discerning philanthropy to causes she deeply believed in, not to entitled family members who saw her only as a means to an end. She had found a genuine peace, a sense of liberation that money alone could never buy. The lines of worry that had etched her face for years had softened, replaced by the serene glow of contentment and self-possession. Months turned into a year, then two. Alara Vance, now 80, radiated a newfound vibrancy, her emerald eyes once again sparkling with warmth, but now with a deeper wisdom. Her days were filled with purpose and genuine connection. She traveled extensively, exploring ancient ruins in Greece, enjoying culinary tours in France, and finding tranquility in the fjords of Norway. She volunteered at a local animal shelter, her gentle touch bringing comfort to abandoned creatures, finding solace in unconditional affection. She hosted small, intimate dinners for her true friends, where laughter and heartfelt conversations flowed freely, without the underlying tension of obligation. Her generosity was now directed to causes that truly needed it, making a tangible difference, rather than fueling an insatiable appetite. Lyra and Theron Vance had, by necessity, learned to stand on their own. They had lost their Silverwood Hills mansion, their luxury cars, and much of their social circle, replaced by the harsh realities of budgeting and responsibility. Lyra, humbled by the indignity of her new circumstances, had to take a full-time, modest-paying job in a small marketing firm, a stark contrast to her elite lifestyle concierge days. She often found herself exhausted, struggling to meet deadlines and expectations for the first time. Theron, after his real estate business collapsed, found employment as a junior sales associate, learning, for the first time, the meaning of a daily grind and a strict budget. Their children, initially resentful and confused by the sudden downturn in their lifestyle, slowly began to adjust to public school and a more grounded reality, finding new friends and new interests beyond designer labels and exclusive clubs. They still resented Alara for a time, for the sudden loss of their accustomed comforts, but without the constant stream of luxuries, they gradually learned to appreciate simpler things, and perhaps, even a deeper sense of self-reliance, a resilience their parents had never possessed. Alara, occasionally hearing updates through her legal team, knew they were struggling, but she also knew they were finally living within their means, and perhaps, just perhaps, learning the invaluable lesson of humility and self-sufficiency. The story of Alara Vance is a poignant reminder that love and respect are not commodities to be bought or demanded. They are earned through genuine connection, kindness, and reciprocity. For too long, Alara had mistaken financial provision for familial affection, pouring her vast resources into a bottomless well of entitlement. But when the laughter of her daughter exposed the harsh truth, Alara found the courage to reclaim her power, not just her financial power, but her power over her own life, her own happiness. She discovered that true freedom lay not in being a relentless provider, but in being true to herself, and that sometimes, the greatest act of love, both for oneself and for others, is to cut the strings that bind you to a life of unacknowledged sacrifice. For in setting herself free, Alara not only found peace but also, inadvertently, gave her family the painful, yet ultimately necessary, gift of self-sufficiency. Thank you for watching this powerful story of justice and transformation. If Alara's journey resonated with you, and you appreciate tales of resilience and life lessons, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. We release new stories every week. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever encountered a similar situation of ingratitude or entitlement in your own life? Or, if you were in Alara's position, what would you have done differently? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.